Once upon a time, I never imagined I'd share a story like this. I'm a plumber, you see. For over 20 years, my life revolved around pipes, fittings, and water pressure. I've handled everything from sewage backups to kitchens flooding knee-deep. If you can name it, I've faced it. I even dug my arms shoulder deep into places I wouldn't wish on anyone. Yet through all that grit, I held my head high. When people call me in emergencies, I'm not just a plumber, I'm their lifeline. For many years, I worked for a large construction corporation. They constructed more than just simple houses, building massive apartment complexes instead. My true specialty? Troubleshooting the toughest plumbing problems. Issues that could create delays and cost the company dearly if not addressed quickly. This was where I excelled. I was their go-to when pressure issues plagued half the building or raw sewage leaked into parking areas. And most times, I managed to fix the problems before the dreaded deadline arrived. One unforgettable job occurred at a sprawling 400-unit complex downtown. Just before the inspection, water pressure wavered on the upper floors. The foreman was panicking. Inspectors would be there in 2 days. If I didn't act, the whole project would come to a halt. 12 hours went by as I crawled through shafts, chasing lines, and pressure testing valves. Finally, I discovered a hidden cracked fitting deep within a wall. If I hadn't found it, the leak would have wrecked drywall and ceilings across 2 floors. After replacing and reinforcing it, the inspection passed. That one fix likely saved the company millions in fines. So yeah, I recognized my value. My bosses did too. Whenever a project faced upheaval, they'd call me in, the plumbing firefighter of sorts. And each time, I rose to the occasion. But here's the brutal reality of corporations: they'll soak you dry and cast you aside once you're seen as unprofitable. After wrapping up the colossal project, I walked into my boss's office, let's call him Mark, and asked about a raise. I wasn't looking for a fortune, just a little acknowledgement. "Mark," I said, "I've been patching these projects together with sweat and duct tape. You know how much I've saved this company." He offered that typical tight corporate smile. "We appreciate your contributions, but the budget's tight right now. Let's talk later." But later never arrived. Weeks after our project finished, Mark summoned me once again. I hoped my moment had finally come, but instead, he slid a piece of paper across his desk. "We won't be needing your services anymore. The workload has dropped off, and it's not feasible to keep you on during this downtime." I just stared. "So, you're letting me go after I've held your projects together?" "It's just business," he replied. Those words seared into my mind. Just business. As if my years of hard work meant nothing. All those late nights, skipped dinners, and time lost with family, just business. I left that office feeling empty. The following weeks were harsh. I had some savings, but they evaporated quickly. My wife tried to maintain optimism, yet I could see the fear in her eyes when we reviewed the bills. I picked up every odd job I could, fixing water heaters, unclogging drains, sealing pipes in old homes. Many days, I returned home reeking of sewage, with cracked hands and sore knees, barely covering our groceries. The stress consumed me, tearing me apart. I lay awake, worrying about my kids and how to keep food on the table. My blood pressure skyrocketed. The doctor warned I needed to slow down. But what choice did I have? One night, after an especially rough day, where a job fell through and I returned with little, I slumped in the dark kitchen, staring at unpaid bills. I felt worthless, like the company had drained me dry and tossed me aside. My wife placed a hand on my shoulder and softly said, "You're better than them. You're not done yet." Her words resonated with me. And that's when I decided, if they wouldn't value me, I would value myself. I gathered every last penny and began the process of obtaining my plumbing license and registering my business. The journey was tough. The paperwork, the fees, the inspections, it felt overwhelming. Many times, I considered quitting. Yet whenever I thought of Mark's smug attitude, claiming it was just business, I refused to let them win. Months later, I finally obtained my license. My wife and I celebrated with cheap pizza and a six-pack. It felt better than any corporate bonus I'd ever received. I slapped my name on an old van I bought secondhand, stocked it with tools, and started hustling. Initially, it was slow, fixing leaky faucets and unclogging toilets. But word began to spread. I approached every job with the same urgency, treating them as if lives depended on it. I never compromised quality. If I promised to show up at 8 a.m., I was there by 7:45. People noticed. Then, fortune smiled upon me. The city issued a bid for plumbing maintenance contracts on several large residential complexes. Guess whose complexes they were? You got it, the same corporation that let me go. I couldn't help but chuckle when I saw their name on the paperwork. I submitted my bid, undercutting just enough to remain competitive while valuing my work. And by some miracle, or karma, I won. Signing that contract felt like a breath of fresh air. It wasn't just about the money, it was about returning to the very buildings I had contributed to, but this time, on my terms. And that's where the real twist began. The first inspection I conducted was supposed to be routine, checking pressure levels, ensuring pumps worked, and confirming sewage lines were clear. Yet, as I surveyed the site, things didn't seem right. Valves were incorrectly installed. Pipes failed to meet code. Quick fixes lurked behind walls. It was the kind of shoddy workmanship I would have never accepted when I was there. At first, I assumed it might just be oversight. But the deeper I probed, the worse it became. In that moment, flashlight in hand, I stood amidst a cluttered utility room, gazing at a dreadful joint that threatened to wreak havoc. The solder was inconsistent, cracking at the edges. Someone had badly cut corners. The more I examined, the worse the findings grew. Expansion tanks poorly installed, valves positioned incorrectly. Sewage lines sloped against gravity, creating stagnant waste, an inevitable backup waiting to happen. This wasn't just oversight, it was intentional corner cutting, saving money now at a significant future cost. I found myself reflecting in that moldy smelling space. They thought I was disposable? For a brief moment, I wavered. I could quietly resolve the issues, collect my paycheck, and walk away. But envisioning my family at the table surrounded by unpaid bills haunted me. I pictured Mark, that arrogant boss, smirking again, dismissing everything as just business. So I resolved, let's play the business game. The next day, I organized a formal inspection with the city. Standard procedure for contracts, but this time I didn't just go through the motions. I meticulously documented everything, each misaligned pipe, every safety violation, all the hidden shortcuts. Photos, pressure test logs, thermal imaging showcased improperly insulated hot water lines. By the end, I had a binder thick enough to drop like a brick. When the inspector arrived, I guided him through every site detail. He frowned, taking notes diligently. As I showcased each problem, the inspector's face darkened. By the end, he was shaking his head. This is unacceptable. Whoever approved this clearly did a dismal job. I simply shrugged, grinning inside. Here's the kicker, when a licensed contractor like me presents defects to the city, it triggers investigations. Clear systemic issues lead to deeper scrutiny, not just isolated mistakes. And dig they did. Within weeks, the corporation faced steep fines, hundreds of thousands of dollars. To compound their issues, the news went viral. Major developer under fire for unsafe plumbing in residential complexes. Tenants were worried about their habitats, anxiously calling. Lawyers smelled opportunity. I kept my head down, focused on my work, but news spread quickly. Former colleagues checked in with me. Did you hear? The company's losing contracts. Half the clients have pulled out. They're scrambling. One even mentioned overhearing Mark explode in a meeting, cursing my name for the crisis. That knowledge felt sweeter than I cared to admit. And the best part? While they were burning bridges, I was constructing my own. Tenants, once terrified, began to see me as the bearer of truth. I didn't merely fix leaks, I explained the issues, showed them the right processes, and offered reassurance. Trust is everything. My small venture quickly grew as calls flooded in and referrals piled up. Before long, I had to hire 2 additional crew members just to keep pace. I'll forever remember the day I encountered Mark again. About a year later, at a trade expo for contractors and developers hosted by the city, I manned a booth for my thriving business, shaking hands and distributing cards. And there he was, Mark. His familiar smug expression now framed by deeper stress lines, as if life had pushed him around. Upon catching sight of me, he hesitated but forced a smile. I held his gaze firmly. Yeah. Just business, right? For a fleeting moment, I saw his face twitch. Then he turned and walked away without another word. That moment? Worth every sleepless night and all the bills I had worried over. But here's the twist, the sweetness of revenge opened my eyes. Watching that corporation squirm, knowing they could no longer sweep their issues under the carpet, granted me closure I doubted I'd ever see. Still, as time passed, reality dawned upon me. For years, I believed my value originated from the company. I thought I needed them to succeed, that without their projects, I was just another plumber with tools. Getting fired was my wake-up call. They didn't need me, I was essential to them. As soon as I stopped seeking their validation and established my own business, I flourished. Now, when I crawl beneath a sink or delve into a boiler room, I do so with pride. My name adorns the van, my reputation stands on the line, and nobody can strip that from me. Clients call because I uphold standards, not because I cut corners. And sometimes, in the quiet of night, I reflect on that dark kitchen table overflowing with bills when I believed I'd reached the end. If I could talk to my past self, I'd say, hold on. The fall stings, but the rise back is worth every ounce of effort. So yes, my former bosses tried to discard me like waste. Instead, they ignited a fire within me. In the end, they lost everything while I forged a genuine future. Call it karma, call it revenge. Me? I just refer to it as plumbing justice.